Hello, welcome back to the David Watson podcast. I'm going to start straight off by saying the builders are next door, I think. So you may hear some background noises. Hopefully it's not interfered too much. But every time I've been trying to do an introduction, there's a guy with a drill. And it did start at some point during the episode, I believe. So anyway, to today's episode, I had a fantastic, energetic, exciting conversation with Janine. And we started from the place of coach-shaped people. Good morning. How are you? Despite the fact we've chatted for 20 minutes already. How are you doing? Are you all right?
I'm all right, thanks. Thanks for having me.
You're very welcome, and thank you for coming on. So yeah, let's jump straight in with coach-shaped people. I just like that term. What is it?
Well, you said you hoped it was what you thought it was, so I'd love to know what you think it was.
So for regular listeners, people will know that I do coach people and I do hypnotherapy, and my main job is I work full-time in head injury rehabilitation, and I work typically with the same two people and have done for over a decade now. So to me, when I saw coach-shaped people, there was a part of me that's like, I've worked with lots of people that need shaping and are really just not appropriate, because one of the things about when you're coaching people, and PTs will understand this extremely well, there's people that are actually committed to change. There are people that understand they want and need to change. And then there's wishful thinkers who believe in unicorns and are, quite frankly, irritating, because there is a point whenever you're trying to achieve anything, regardless of what it is, where reality is the actual sort of the parameters of what you have to work with. And sometimes I've started coaching people, and they come up with all of these desires, all of these things, and they're really good ideas, really good intentions, but trying to get them to take any form of actual action is just like, but I can manifest it with thought. You're fat, you eat too much, at some point you have to stop and move more. It's just, you're not going to manifest a slim body and a great job by watching daytime TV, eating cookies. It's not how it works. And you know what I mean? So it's just like, so that's my little rant over. And if you're one of those people, don't contact me. Contact somebody else.
Yeah, so my definition of coach-shaped people is it's the coach. So I work with coaches, mentors, strategists, consultants, but why I call them coach-shaped people is you can have a consultant. So your example, the person wants a slim body and a good job or a better job. You can tell them what to do. A consultant, by definition, would say, right, well, these are the steps, crack on. Whereas a coach would kind of go a bit deeper and ask what's holding them back. A coach tends to draw out what the real desires and the solutions that the person knows is within them already, that kind of thing. So that's why I say coach shape, because I'm a consultant. My background is marketing. I'm marketing trained. I've got a business degree. I used to work in corporate marketing, and I help coaches and consultants with their marketing, like understand how to do it and get more bang for their buck and all that.
Yeah.
But I do weave in a bit of sort of questioning, and I look out for self-limiting beliefs and that kind of thing. So I'm a little bit coachy, but I'm not a trained coach.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't describe myself. I don't know what a trained coach is, because I see lots of people with qualifications, and it's like, well, technically I'm a qualified counsellor, but I passed that exam 20 odd years ago, and I'm not sure that it's worth anything these days. I've got plenty of life experience. I'm an ex-offender. I've been bankrupt. I'm a qualified hypnotherapist. 20 years working with head injuries. Do you know what I mean? So my question when somebody comes to me is, I always start with, how do you think I can help you? Do you know what I mean? Because there's got to be something that resonates. What is it that makes you think that I can do something for you? And then the other thing is, I always ask them to be actually honest about what they want. So, and why they want it. Do you know what I mean? So it's a lot, like when people it's amazing how many people, and I'm not a PT, but it's amazing how many people will ask me for fitness advice. And it's, well, why do you want to lose weight? Oh, because it's healthy, it's this, it's that. Are you sure it's not just vanity because you want to look good, because looking good feels amazing? Well, yeah, it is that. Okay, should we start again then? Should we be honest about why you want something? Because if you're going to be honest about why you want it, you potentially have a great roadmap to be successful. But if you're trying to pretend it's for something else, you're never going to tap into what truly inspires you and what your deepest fears are.
Yeah, I mean, you hit the nail on the head there with conversations I have with a lot of coach-shaped people. Like, some people are accredited, and some people aren't. I was having this conversation a few weeks ago with a couple of very seasoned old hands. They were leadership coaches. They've been in it decades. And I was having this conversation with them and saying about what do they think about accreditation and getting coaching accreditations. And they were like, accredited by who? Accredited by who? Like, I've got 20 years of experience. I've got all these amazing accolades under my belt. I've coached these people, senior leaders, CEOs of this company. I've got these results. Like, accredited by who? So I think I'm not dissing accreditation bodies. I think it can be a really good springboard if somebody wants to be a coach and to help people. There are accreditation bodies that can fast track, that sort of learning the tools, filling your toolbox. But it's not a replacement for experience. You still need to get experience. So, and that's why I say coach shaped, because some coaches I know have gone through the accreditation process of one of the many bodies that do that, and then they've been asked to be I think the pure definition of a coach is you don't give any advice, like the purest definition. But like a lot of my clients, they're accredited, some of them are accredited coaches, and they want to give advice as well. Like, sometimes you can't coach knowledge, basically. Yeah. And if you've got a piece of knowledge and you've been in the situation that your client's been in, and you can give a little bit of advice or a suggestion, why would you not do that?
Because I'm the same as you. I think accreditation has its place. I think experience has its place. I think effectively your ability to listen will supersede anything. If you can listen to what the person is telling you and pick out the points that are maybe pain points for them, or the bits where they're stumbling. But again, I think it depends on the individual that you're dealing with. Some people will come to me and completely offload about their toxic marriage, and their self-esteem has been absolutely battered. And you slowly help them pick up the pieces and rebuild a picture of who they can be and who they are and how they can do that. And someone else might be an executive who just wants to talk to you about the idiot in the boardroom that really pissed them off last week, because there's things they can't say publicly, but they need to get off their chest. And for some people, you're just like a patio in their mind where they can go out, relax, say whatever they want, and smoke a cigarette. And then maybe discuss ideas with you, because they just need to offload an idea to give it a chance to sort of ferment. And what does somebody else think about it? And typically you just ask them, why would that work? How does that work? Because you don't understand, you're not in their business. So it's matching up with their experience, how they're trying to achieve something, and the motivation or the reasons why they want to achieve that. Yeah. And does that tally up with, the objective you're trying to achieve with how it's going to be received? And some of them they can't talk about that in the boardroom or in the meeting. So they'll go off, bounce it all around the room with me, and then have the conversation, because it's all nice and neat now. And, but then again, like I said, other people have had a really toxic relationship and have got it into their head that they're worthless. And and your job is to sort of highlight to them that they have absolutely no evidence at all that they're worthless, other than someone else's opinion that they became attached to. And so it's and I'm not sure how. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off there. I as much as I think there is a genuine benefit and maybe even a need at times for certain accreditations, that for me the fear is always people get attached to a textbook. Well, this is what it said in the book, and it's like but it's not working for that person. And the reason it's not working is because you're sort of paraphrasing paragraphs you learn to recite rather than try to understand the individual in front of you.
Yeah, you're right. It's all about the listening. It's all about the listening for and listening deeper. Like your examples, somebody might say something, but you've got to dig deeper and you've got to ask them, and sort of you get a sense for when they say things, and it's like, that's not true. You're just saying that. I can't explain this, but you've just said something that I try to explain to people and do a poor job of. Sometimes when people are talking, they don't say something when they should have. And people are like, what do you mean? What do you mean? But you just said you're listening to them and they say something, and there's something in my head that just like, no, that's not true. And the only way I can put it is they said the wrong. I don't know how to articulate it, because it's like it's an instinct where you were just sort of saying the same thing. They're not saying what they should be saying. And it's only because you're just like, and I don't know how, there's always something missing. But I also find that when they do that, I can't challenge it. I have to let them carry on for 5 minutes. Yeah.
And then bring them back to it.
Yes.
Because it's like there's something subconsciously that stepped in to protect them from, and you've got to allow that alarm to go off.
Yeah.
And then, okay, we'll go down the road with that. And then we're going to, once your guard is down, we'll go back to, what was that about?
Yeah. Yeah, I feel a bit mean sometimes, because you let them finish the sentence or finish the thought. You're like, is that true?
Yeah. Is
that true? Because what you said you wanted the other week was this, and now you're saying this, and they're like,
Because it's funny, isn't it? Because we're all guilty of not really always being aware of the defence mechanisms we have in place to navigate the world around us.
They're sneaky.
They're much smarter than me, and they're mine, apparently. Do you know what I mean? It's like I look at that defence mechanism. That's quite smart. You know what I mean?
Super smart.
Yeah, and they're like, but that's you.
It keeps changing.
It does.
It
does. It's like my own personal AI, and I don't know it exists, but it controls me all the time.
Yeah, and sometimes you can catch it, and oftentimes you can't. I'm running a workshop tomorrow, and been promoting it for weeks. Really, really excited about it. When I came up with the concept, I thought I didn't want to do the old one because I was bored of it. Now that could have been a self-sabotaging thing, because the old presentation was perfectly good. But anyway, I decided to do a whole new one. I'm really, really excited. And then now it's come to it, like the last couple of days, as it's got nearer, I'm starting getting voices in my head saying, this is boring. People have heard this a million times before. This is awful. Don't do that. You got that from that other person. This isn't original. And I've started to call my inner critic Doris.
Doris.
Nice. She's
nice to meet you, Doris. I hope you're well.
That's her voice. She's a mole woman. She lives in a bunker.
Oh.
And she's scared of the outside world.
Has she got cats?
Don't diss cats. I've got cats.
I never said. It's just secure.
No, you can't keep cats in the bunker. You can't keep cats in the bunker. She's probably got a couple of rats instead.
I've had rats and I've had cats. Do you know, they're all good company.
I know. But yeah, it's more of a bunker pet rat. Yeah.
It's interesting.
She's trying to keep me safe, but she's being annoying.
But it's interesting because you said, like, your brain tells you that's not original. So and so come up with that. So and so. But I don't know anything I do that's original. It's all someone else's idea. I'm not. I wish I was the creator of something special, but I'm not. It's really just the different people. Something that's I picked up from, I don't know, a podcast I watched last week or a book I read from 1947 or whatever it was, is everything is just a regurgitated idea. It's just, it's fashion in a sense. You're wearing a cardigan, I'm wearing a t-shirt. Well, there's a million different variations to that because styles come in and out and things resonate, and it's always your ability to communicate what somebody's trying to learn in that moment. And if they tune into you, you're like, this is why it's right. So everybody that's paid to come onto your workshop, it's right for them because there's something about you that's delivering a message that they need to hear from you.
Yeah. Yes, it's so true. I'm reading a book at the moment. I've got a little side project. I don't know what you call it, hobby.
Yeah.
I like writing and I want to get more into the writing, and I don't know what I want to write yet. Is it going to be a sitcom? Is it going to be a book? Don't know. But I've got a little notebook with random thoughts in it, and I'm reading a book called Into the Woods, and I can't remember the author, I'm afraid. But he's laying out the way that humans tell stories.
Yes.
And there's a format to it. It's not a formula because it's not like an awareness thing that we've calculated and done it on purpose. It's through the history of humanity. Obviously, stories have been part of humanity. It's why we survived so long, and how we flourished. This passing on of knowledge and encoding things that are really, really important. But it's so interesting. Like everything, even filmmakers who don't like the appearance of this sort of 3 set or 4 or 5 part plays or ways of telling stories, they do it anyway. They're like, I think that's awful, I would never write a script like that, I would never direct a film like that, but they do it anyway because it's just how humans tell stories. It's just not, there's nothing new.
It's funny when you said that, because I wrote a book about, was it 10 years ago? I can't remember. But I started off with exactly that, just writing notes. I went to some creative writing classes, thoroughly enjoyed them, did some playwriting classes, thoroughly enjoyed them. And I had this idea of what I was going to write, and I thought I'd be like really smart, metropolitan, clever and stuff. And no matter what I tried to write, it didn't happen. And then I eventually just ended up writing a book on reincarnation from the point of view of somebody who committed suicide.
Ooh.
And I've no idea. I know now where the story came from. Do you know what I mean? And how it happened. It was like a reflection of my own mental health in my late 20s, sort of thing, where I contemplated going down that road. But it wasn't. Do you know what I mean? I was inspired. I was going to do something funny and really interesting and witty and stuff like that, and honestly believed I could. But when I started, every time I seriously sat down to start writing, that wasn't what my subconscious wanted to write about. And it was a really interesting journey, learning to just switch off and allow myself to write. Yeah.
Oh, how exciting.
It was really good. It was really good. And I learned so many different things from different writers, about how to write, styles of writing. The only conclusion I came to is you've got to kind of discover who you are. Some people can just sit down and write. Other people kind of... I realised I needed a little bit of structure. So I used to plan at one point just 2 hours a week or something in my diary. Like, I have to sit down and write. And it didn't matter if I really wrote a sentence or I only wrote a paragraph. I had to write something. And sometimes I could write more than that, and I could write a few times a week. Other times I couldn't. But I did that. Where some people were like, you've got to sit facing a wall and just and just type away regardless. And at some point you have to get past the procrastination and just write regardless. And just write it out. And if you don't like it, delete it the next day or the next week. I needed a little bit of time to forget. And I realised when I did my first draft eventually, because it started off as a play and then became a book. And when I did the first draft, I realised I needed about 6 weeks to forget what the story was, so I could go back and read it and see what I understood and what I didn't, and what I needed to explain. And that's kind of how it evolved over 4 or 5 drafts.
Yeah, you're just too close to it, aren't you?
For me,
if you've written something,
for me,
I read it.
But some people will edit the next morning and are really, really good at it. And I think you have to kind of discover who you are as a person.
Yeah. Oh, it's a long journey. It's a long journey I've embarked on.
Yeah, but it's
Everything
good.
to think, I just won't bother.
So going back to, no, you've got to do it. You genuinely. One of the ways I navigated that is because I kind of like, if somebody commits suicide, you already know the ending. So I decided what I needed to do to get outside of my own head was turn each chapter into just a short story. Because when I thought about the book, it stopped me writing. But if I just thought, okay, right, chapter 1, what happens? And I just focused on chapter 1, and then, okay, chapter 2 is just, and in my head, it's just like, actually, and I know it sounds so simple when you say it. It's like, well, obviously, but it was what was tripping me up is I couldn't picture an entire story, if you know, I could in a sense, but in the end, when I just wrote down, like, well, this is roughly what's the story roughly, I then just created a short story around each plot. And then I just kind of had this like little block work of what it was, and that worked really well for me. And I didn't stick to it religiously or anything like that. But it was what I needed to take the next step. And I think that's what people need to do, is just like figure out how you want your staircase to look. Because that's what you're going to climb. But if you're always looking at over somebody else's, and you don't really understand what yours is, I find that's what, for me, was what was limiting me. And it was only when I read enough about enough authors that I realised there's no actual golden rule. You just got to figure out what works for you.
Yeah. Oh, I love that analogy. Because you can look, it looks like somebody's leapt from a start to the first floor, second floor, 10th floor, whatever. But actually, there is a staircase. You just don't know what their staircase is. And even if you did, it might not suit you.
Honestly, that's exactly how I found it. And I found people said different things that resonated with me. And that helped me on that kind of that purpose of doing it. Like for me, I couldn't edit. Do you know what I mean? I had to wait until it was completely finished. And then I would print it off. And then with a pencil, as if I was still at school, back in primary school, had a pencil for notes and a red pen for problems. You know what I mean? And I wouldn't change them. I would just write them down and then go to the next page and just add the notes and put red marks and stuff like that. And then once I'd done all of that, I would then do the second draft based on that. And I think I ended up doing 3 or 4 drafts before it then went to an editor and a proofreader and stuff like that. And then you take back their suggestions and start again. So by the time I sent it off to get it a self-publisher, it was like it'd be about 5 sort of drafts.
Yeah.
Yeah. But it is.
Oh, wow.
It was a really good journey. I'm really, really weirdly, now I'm very proud that I did it. But at the time, you're just kind of not in that mental space.
Oh, really? Well, you got it published and you're like, thank goodness I've done that. And you release it.
Yeah, it was very much like that. Whereas now I'm like, I actually wrote a book. Actually, an incredible achievement. It's a great achievement.
You put author on your headlines everywhere.
Yeah, I've never thought about that, but I should really, because I technically am. But so going back to the workshop. What's the workshop you're doing tomorrow?
The workshop I'm doing tomorrow is aimed at coaches and consultants. For anybody who's not a coach or consultant, this might not make any sense. But why your perfect fit coach-shaped people. Sorry, I'm going to get it all wrong now. I can start again. Why your perfect coaching clients won't buy and what you can do about it. And it's basically the 3 real reasons why people don't buy, because what we hear a lot of is, I don't have the money, I don't have the time, maybe next year. It's not, can't work on this right now, I haven't got the headspace. But really there are 3 reasons, and I can't tell you what they are because people have to come to the workshop.
That's a good point. Because I've never tried to sell. I put videos up on Instagram, TikTok and Facebook, and I basically talk about either coaching or mental health problems. And over the years, I'm not saying it's an effective marketing tool, it's one that has worked okay for me. And the reason I put that caveat in is because I have a full-time job, so I'm not trying to be a full-time coach or a full-time hypnotherapist, if that makes sense. But the reason I enjoy that way is, one, I just I suppose the sound of my own voice is out there, and that's always nice. But when people contact me, they already know who I am. They know the sound of the voice. They know what I look at, what I look like. So I've never had to sell them anything, because they've already reached out to, and I could probably do 10 times more work if I focused on a more marketing sales approach. And there's definitely, well, I don't have to because I work already. But what happens is, when people contact me, that they've effectively already decided they're buying my services, and I haven't even had any face-to-face contact with them yet, because they probably watched 1,000 of my videos. They know weirdly, they know exactly what I'm going to say.
Yeah. And
sometimes they'll even tell me a video they watched where I said something similar.
Yeah, I mean that's classic. That's the purpose of marketing. It might not feel like marketing, and you probably don't want to use the word marketing because it doesn't feel like it. But it's helping people get to know you, your values, your voice.
Yeah.
Video and voice is such a powerful way to help people get to know you. The amount of people I've met in real life, and they've seen my videos and I've seen their videos, and then we meet in real life, and it's like, oh, it's you again, but we've never ever met.
Yeah.
Never met, never even spoken.
I think it's important for people to understand everything you do is marketing in some way or another. You're marketing to somebody, even if you don't. If you're sitting on the bus, you're marketing to everyone around you, whether you realise it or not. You're presenting yourself in some way. One of the reasons I originally thought of podcasting was because I thought it would be a great marketing tool, not just for myself but for other people. Because if somebody was interested in you, they get to listen to you in a long format, because people are always making decisions emotionally, and if somebody's going to invest in you, it really does help if they think they already know you. And if a lot of your values sound like they line up with theirs. And podcasting for me was a way of doing that with other coaches and people like yourself, so I got to kind of learn what the market was doing, what everyone else was doing. It's a fantastic opportunity to be nosy, because you can just ask questions, and it was just a nice way to learn how to talk to people I'd never met before. It was really self-indulgent.
Covers all bases.
Yeah, because it's interesting when you coach people, like you're going to have it tomorrow. Everybody that turns up already knows you, and the thing that you're going to do really well is just gel with them, because you're the one that's always had to learn how to talk to complete strangers that have never met.
Yes.
and it's a really underappreciated skill.
Yeah, it's so weird. I remember not being good at talking to people I didn't know, and seeing my mum strike up a conversation with some random person in a shop, and thinking, how is she doing that, and why? And they're not looking at her weird. It's so weird.
But I sometimes still slip into that. Oh, I'm not very good at starting conversations. And it's like, you're probably doing all right, David.
You must be good at it, wasn't you?
Yeah, but if I get inside my head, like you say, like the Doris, if I get inside their head and have a conversation with Doris, it's like, nobody wants to talk to you. You're really boring. You never shut up. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
You can't do this.
Yeah. Or people going, a classic that I hear of people who hate networking and going to conferences when they don't know anybody. They think nobody's going to be interested in you. But the key is you don't have to be interesting. Your job's not to be interesting. Your job's to be interested in other people. And it just takes the onus off you, doesn't it? You focus on other people. It's not.
It is, isn't it? Because it's the interesting thing is because you can. I don't know why this is popped in my head, but I'll run with it. I remember years and years ago. So my original background was customer services. I used to work in the car trade, like Volvo, Volkswagen, Audi, and BMW. And they were always, it was really good because they would do all of this brand awareness courses and stuff like that. And, you know, you'd go off somewhere, you'd learn about the product, the car, how it matched the company's brand values, how those values is what attracted customers and what those customers were like and what you should expect and stuff. And I realized, I don't know how I figured this out. I just realized that when you turn up at these, there's somewhere between 10 to 20 of you in a room. And the first thing they do is say, okay, we want everyone to stand up and introduce themselves. Who wants to go first? Yeah. And the very first time I was there, I just went, yeah, I'll go first. And I just stood up and started telling everyone who I was. Right? And everyone was like, oh, I wish I was that confident. And I was just like, it's not confidence. We've all got to do it. I'd rather just get it out of the way. And
I know, but when you're in it,
but
the amount of times I'd be in just even a little meeting, because I used to work in telecoms, big corporates, and they'd be like, right, everybody say who you are and what you do, and I'm like, oh my god, I can't remember what I do. What do I do? What is my name?
Yeah, but and then as a consequence of that, what I realised afterwards is everybody remembers the first person and the last person that talks. So you may as well just be the first person everyone remembers. And then everyone kind of navigates towards you. Or you always it always felt like people were listening when you were talking about ideas and suggestions. But it wasn't confidence at all. It was just, well, we've all got to do it. I'd rather get it out of the way. It was like just getting your chores done so you could go and chill out.
Yeah.
Right? And
pastoral.
Yeah, it was. It was just like, all right, okay. I just would get up and stand up in front of 20 people and say, I'm David. I'm from Wiltshire, and I work at such and such, and and it was really boring because there was nothing exciting to say, but you just start the ball rolling, and quite often other people then just followed on and picked up, and it always seemed to sit well with people.
Yeah, it's like supposedly in karaoke bars when they're not in those little booths, but when they're performing, they have somebody to sing the first couple of songs because people won't be the first.
Yeah, that's exactly. There's a thing on social media about that the hardest thing about growing your social media is that often people won't comment or won't follow you because you don't have a big enough following and not enough people are commenting.
Yeah.
And
they don't want to be the first.
Yeah, nobody wants to be. But ironically, when you become really successful, everybody wants to be able to say, I've been following him for years.
Yeah.
It's just how it is. So where did it start for you?
The business?
Well, just,
Or my life? Do you want me to go back to birth? I could, it's going to be a very long conversation if you want me to start.
Well, it's a long format podcast, so we can do life stories. It's good.
Blow by blow account of my life. So my background, I will give you the long version, but I'll try and be concise. How about that?
Yeah.
I feel like for a lot of my early life, I was on a conveyor belt, and I think a lot of people can resonate with this. Yeah. Like I went to school, and then I did my GCSEs, and I did my A-levels, and then if you do your A-levels, you were expected to go to university. The school I went to, you're expected to go to university. So you go to university, it kind of didn't even matter what I was doing. It's just like, well, you're going to university. So I went to university, picked business and French because it was broad, because I didn't want to pigeonhole myself at that point. And I did that, and then I fell into a marketing job, and I did that, and then I got another marketing job, and I never stopped to think, does this light me up? Does it suit my personality? Who am I?
Yeah.
Like, what am I actually good at? And I had my 2 kids and I decided not to go back to work. So I handed in my notice, which was such a privilege. Like, my husband runs his own business and his business had just got up to the level where he could take over, because I was paying all the bills and everything while he was setting up his business. So we sort of switched. I gave up work, had my kids, he paid all the bills, and I had this luxury of okay, it was amongst screaming kids and nappies, but I had this luxury of what actually do I want to do? What actually, just time to think. And I decided to set up my own business helping people do their marketing. To begin with, it was very, very, very broad. It was all service-based business owners, small service-based business owners. And gradually, I got to where I am now, which is helping coaches and consultants. But in that journey, I realised I'm extremely creative. Yes. And it took me until I was 40. Until I was 40.
No,
my ideas come out of my head all the time. It's a plague.
No, 100%. I understand that completely.
But I didn't know. And I wasn't encouraged, and I wasn't, in corporate, it was I was like a project manager. I was in the marketing department, but I was pulling insights from that department. Okay, have we got the financials? That person's going to do the copy. That person's going to do the graphics. That person's going to send it all out, and then they're going to report back to me with what the results are. It was not very creative at all. How I ended up in that job, I don't know.
But it's a conveyor belt, though, isn't it?
Mm.
It becomes a needs must.
Yeah.
And to a certain extent, if your needs are being met, why would you question it? It just becomes it kind of and how can I think sometimes what happens is needs must. You're on that conveyor belt, needs must, and it meets your needs, so why complain? And then somewhere in the back of your head there's a sort of loneliness that starts off small, and it's just something isn't sitting right. And I honestly believe sometimes this is where things like depression starts to come from, because there's something in the back of your mind that's unanswered. And eventually, although it never screams at you, it becomes a gaping hole that can never be filled. And the reason for that is because the current sort of path you're on is the thing that's making the hole wider.
Yeah. Yeah, it's an unmet need that you're not even aware of, I suppose.
Yeah, I just, like you said, you by fortunate circumstances, in a sense, starting with, and and if I've got this completely wrong, make sure you correct me, but your husband took a chance on his own business. You were able to support him to do that because you were working, and then as you said, do you know what I mean? Because that's kind of like a miracle in its own way, because if you don't have one, you can't have the other. But you're also relying on him to pull it off. And he's relying on you not to give up faith in him. Do you know what I mean? And then as you said, as he came up to the point where actually the business is surviving and doing well, you could step back and have kids. And in the midst of kind of like, well, now I'm a mother with these sort of things running around screaming at me, and which apparently is fulfilling, and you then like, well, who am I? And what do I love, and what am I good at? And then, like you said, through a series of various clients, you were able to sort of hone that down, and in the most amazing way, pigeonhole yourself.
Yeah. And
like discover, like, fucking hell, this is what I'm really good at, and I love it.
Yeah. Yeah, it's all, and what strikes me is it's all about the exploration, isn't it? People do say it's not about the destination, it's about the journey, but it's so true. Like,
but the journey sucks. It does. What I mean by that is, and I suppose I'm saying that because I'm still on a journey, if you like. But it's the when you get to that end destination and you're like zeroed in and you know what you're doing, you're so grateful for the journey that took you there.
Right.
But when you're still like, is left and left, or was right, and Have I put the correct socks on this morning, and all of this? Do you know what I mean? And you're just like, you just don't still know what you're doing. You're just like, this sucks. I want to get, because you have this idea of where you're supposed to be.
Yeah. Yes. No, I see what you mean. Yeah. But like, the funny thing is, like, there were so many things about myself that I wasn't aware of until I was working for myself and I could fund my own self-development. And like, I've had coaches and I've paid for consultants for myself. And, you know, I've had all this self-development that I wasn't even aware existed when I was in corporate. Like, I didn't even really know what coaching was when I worked in corporate. I don't think generally it was as well known in this country a couple of decades ago anyway. But through that process, like, for instance, I used to hate having my photo taken. I used to hate seeing photos of myself. I used to, certainly not video, could not be on video. Like, my voice was horrible, my face, everything. So self-critical. And then because, you know, of the type of business that I run, being visible is helpful.
Pretty essential.
I started going on video, and I was like, hang on a minute, I really like this. And it was almost like a guilt thing. Like,
no, but I'm the same.
Am I allowed to like it? Is that...
Did you remember before we started recording, I said to you it's like an alter ego?
Yeah.
That because honestly, you would not believe how I was camera shy beforehand. Right? And I do these like little 1-minute videos, and I only do 3 a week now. I used to do 5 a week. I used to do 1 every day, and it's either mental health, motivation, or something like that. And the one of the reasons I did it briefly for somebody to help motivate them, but it was just private between the two of us, you know. But it wasn't my voice, but not my face. And then I wanted to put it out there, because it's like, well, you know, it's the best way to promote your own coaching business. Just actually tell people you know what you're talking about. And but I became incredibly shy and worried about what people would think. And I was just like, and it was that personal development. It's like, you haven't put a single video out, and you're scared of what people will think, and you don't even know who these people are. What is it exactly you think you're afraid of? And I was just afraid of being ridiculed, right, by people I don't even know, with the narcissism level that I thought people would watch me. And then I just started making them, and I did get ridiculed by people, you know. And you realise it's not as bad as I thought it would be. I'm actually okay, and I became really comfortable. But then you realise you have to make them better, to improve them. You have to watch yourself, and you have to listen to your voice. And then I switched into podcasting, because I always wanted to have a podcast and stuff. And again, I realised I'd wanted a podcast for years, but was always trying to partner up with other people, and it never worked. So I was like, well, just do it on your own. And the reason I'd never done it is because I didn't know how to do it. And I always assumed that everybody knew how to do something before they started doing it. It's like, no, nobody does, because they've never done it before. But that's, you know, that was the Doris in my head. Just like, you don't know what you're doing, so you can't do it. And then one day I realised, well, nobody knows what they're doing until they've started doing it. And then I suddenly, like now, weirdly, if I can't hear my voice in my headphones, I have to adjust the settings, because I need to be able to hear my voice. But all of those things, I was so self-sabotaging, self-conscious, whatever people want to call it, that you wouldn't believe that that's who this is talking to you.
People don't believe, like, I'm extremely silly on videos. Like, I dress up, I put on silly voices, I gurn with my face, and people don't believe me when I say that I used to be really nervous on video. But you've got to start somewhere. And I think what puts a lot of people off, definitely the fear of judgment, but also it's you are failing in public. You are being rubbish in public. Like, you have to learn. The only way you can learn is by doing it, and you'll be not great to begin with.
The other thing as well that people don't realise is, when people come and see you for the first time, 99% of the time they don't know if you've made a mistake. It's you that knows the mistake. They've no idea. They've not seen it before. It's not a play. It's not a song that they know all the words to and every chord to. They don't know if you've made a mistake. And the other thing I find is really useful is to tell people that you made the mistake. And don't just like, by the way, that was a mistake. That wasn't meant to happen. And turn it into a joke and humanize yourself in front of everyone. Because I find... And this is a personal thing, so it might not resonate for everybody, but sometimes the thing that is really embarrassing is just because it's stuck in my head. And the minute I put it out there and tell everyone, and nobody's even realised or noticed, I don't feel embarrassed anymore. And all that self-consciousness just disappears.
Yeah, so true. Yeah, it's the two different faces you can present. You can try and be perfect and flawless, which is never going to work for very long. Or you can be real, and that's what people resonate with more anyway. Yeah.
100% people sort of... We get caught up so much in our own little loops in our own head that we never think, maybe I need to just step out of that loop a second and see what's actually happening. It's like... It's that echo chamber, isn't it? Where... Were you already listening to Doris? And you haven't sort of said, Doris, have you got a neighbour I can talk to just for a second? I just need to know. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's just, it's very bizarre like that. So how did it grow then?
Very gradually, very slowly. You see lots of people growing their business to umpteen figures in 2 nanoseconds. But for me, it's been a very slow, iterative process, step by step, not forcing it. Actually, that's a complete lie. I was trying to force it and it didn't work. For me, it was just learning what worked for me, gradually deciding, okay, those people I'm not so keen on working with for these reasons. These people I love working with for these reasons, and just honing it over time and building it up. But for my business, being visible has been absolutely key. And, there was one point where I was putting out very distinctive videos on LinkedIn just before the pandemic. And my visibility shot through the roof. And then the pandemic hit. I had no time, no headspace. I was homeschooling my kids. It was awful. And I just had no time to do it. And in fact, I was afraid of getting clients.
Yeah.
It's like if I get a new client, I'd have sales calls, and my energy must have been very repellent.
Yeah.
Because if I had a new client, I'd have to service that new client, and I had 2 kids at home, and I didn't know what was happening. Are they at school? Are they not at school? Very, very, very stressful, as everybody knows how stressful it was. So my business did do a bit of for a year or 2 there, and gradually you sort of come out of it. It's a bit like depression, I think. You sort of you get the support. If you need support, get support, and gradually you climb out of it. And it's taken me ages. I was having a chat with a friend the other day. She likened it to PTSD, acknowledging that proper PTSD is probably more severe, definitely more severe, but it does feel like do you remember when?
The thing is, though, when we've been hit with something that is perceived as a trauma, and when I say perceived, because people have to understand 2 people can go through the same thing, and one person can be deeply affected, and another person it's water off a duck's back. So, I was pretty much zero impact when it came to COVID, because I'm a healthcare worker. I went out every day and went to work. I did overtime. I was going to the shops, I was going to the pharmacy, I was going to the hospital. I had the time of my life. There was nobody on the road I was about to confess to a multiple amount of traffic offences, which I won't, because there was nobody there I could do what I wanted.
No evidence, people. There's no evidence.
You know what I mean? But I then became aware after the first lockdown, when I went to actually visit people who were at home and were in this bubble, and they were nervous. And I was just like, what's wrong with you? There's a virus, David, and people. No one's dying. Don't worry about it. I have a friend of mine who was completely locked down with her husband in their house, and were just in the bubble, properly in the bubble, and that was the first person I'd actually met, sort of face to face, who was in this bubble because it didn't exist for me. I was a healthcare worker. I went to people's houses. I went to different businesses. I worked with teams. And we were testing all the time. And we had 2 different types of tests. But everybody that was in that, like trying to explain to people who were getting their food delivered, you do realise the shops are open. Tesco's is wide open. Sainsbury's, Waitrose, they're all open. And there's delivery drivers, there's warehouse people, the plumbers are still at work, the electricians, all the No, everyone's in lockdown. No, hardly anyone is in lockdown. Because all essential workers was such a broad sort of brush. But it never made me realise how traumatised people had become because they'd never literally stepped outside their front door. They were oblivious to the parts of the country. They just acted like nothing didn't affect me. It had no impact on me at all. I was, because I was a healthcare worker and parts of my job, I was doing shopping for people. So I'd go to different people's houses, drop stuff off. You got your mask on, everything's good.
I can tell you, for parents, it was flipping awful.
And that's it. I wasn't in that bubble.
Yeah.
So I became completely oblivious to it.
Yeah.
The things like you can't go out. There's a lot of people I don't like anyway, so it's fine. But then after the first lockdown and people were social distancing and stuff, because like if you imagine you do personal care, there's no social distancing. And if you're working 2-to-1 for somebody who has high needs, well, there's no social distancing. You can't bathe people and be socially distanced. You can't give medication and dress people and be socially distanced.
No.
And you've got to go into houses, you're meeting different people from different shift patterns, constantly just moving around. Honestly, it was fantastic. I loved it. The roads were empty.
I think you're in a minority.
Yeah. And that's that weird headspace that you get into because, like you said, you come out of it with this trauma of how do I deal with businesses now? Because you couldn't do anything while you were locked down because people will contact you and you're like, I can't deal with this right now. I've got a ton of shit going on. I can't deal with this.
Yeah. Where am I going to get toilet rolls from?
But that became a fear.
We're running out of toilet rolls. My husband had to order like a bulk load through his business. It was like, thank goodness we've got toilet rolls. That's one concern.
But whoever thought that would be a thing?
Oh my goodness.
Could you imagine? Can you for a second think about your grandparents? Did you know your grandparents?
Yeah.
All right. Think about your grandparents. Were they around for the pandemic? Sorry to ask.
Oh, no.
Right.
Dead years.
Perfect. I didn't mean perfect. I mean perfect. So that'd be an obvious...
This conversation is over.
That'd be an obvious mistake that we were talking about. You just have to own them. So the reason for the context behind this, could you imagine explaining to your grandparents about toilet roll and not having to... and the panic that it was across the news?
That's ridiculous, isn't it?
Exactly. How would you make that make sense to them so they would understand that?
Yeah. It's like sci-fi or something.
It just wouldn't work, would it? Just quickly before we finish, I've a couple more questions. One is, what do you do well?
What do I do well? Now, because I have a daily gratitude
nice
ritual, I write down things I'm grateful for, I can reel off what I do well quite easily.
That's good, though.
I'm very good at writing. I'm good at making people laugh. I'm good on video. I'm good at listening. I'm a really good mum.
Fantastic.
Okay, I've run out.
No, but that's important because often when I ask people what they do well, they can list off. I used to do this thing with clients, and you can still do it to some degree. Ask people what it feels like when they have a headache or when they're stressed, and they'll reel off physical symptoms. But if I ask you what it feels like in your body when you feel happy.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Oh, that's hard. Yeah. That's harder, isn't it?
Well, people don't think about it. They really focus. And I often find that when I say to people, like, what do you do well? They get stuck because they just know what they don't do well. So in a marketing sense, what do people do well?
What do people do well?
Yeah, businesses, people, what do they do well? Like at the simple level, because you and I know if you're corporate, like you said, there's an entire team working behind the scenes, chucking out ideas with big budgets. And as soon as something comes back with really positive feedback, okay, let's throw thousands at that, if not hundreds of thousands.
Yeah.
So if you're a small, medium business, what do they do well when it comes to marketing?
I think the people who make it work have lent into their skills and their natural abilities, and they're leaning into who they are and how they like to work. Like a frequent newbie question is like, which social media platform shall I be on? And then the purist consultant answer would be, well, where is your audience? Yeah. I think that's really unhelpful. I think where you should be is where you already are, where you already understand how it works, where you enjoy being, and where you can show off your personality the best. And I'm quite out there and wacky on my videos, but I've seen loads of people who are introverted and have this beautiful, calm, quiet energy, and they can project that on a video or a podcast or wherever. And they've made it work for them. They know who they are, and as Dolly Parton, they're doing it on purpose.
Yeah, I always say, you said something interesting then, because when people say to me, "What platform should I be on?" I said, "The one you enjoy using."
Yeah, don't do the one that you don't understand. And like, there's some people who absolutely hate LinkedIn. I love it. All my mates are on there. But if you really, really, really hate it, but you absolutely love Instagram, why would you not use Instagram?
Yeah,
like, you understand how it works already.
The only other one I say to people is, and again, because it fits into my requirements, just do 1 minute videos, because they can go on the same video can be on multiple platforms.
Yeah. It's all about the path of least resistance, I think. Yeah. So easy to think, I've got to be hustling, it's got to be hard work, I've got to be working hard and working all the hours and work. But it's business is about doing the least that you can get away with. And the path of least resistance, the biggest impact for the least.
Like you were saying, if people don't like video but they love writing, write a blog. People still read blogs. Post them on Facebook. Post on Instagram as a picture, as a screenshot of a link. People still love blogs, and if you love writing, then write instead of doing video.
It's so true. Yeah.
Lastly, and this is completely random.
Lovely.
And it's just a fun game, really. So, using your imagination, just imagine it's a completely magical world, and you can go to any place at any time in history. Any place, any time in history. Where would you go? What car would you drive? And what music would you be listening to? In any order.
Oh, okay. I'm going to start with the car. It would be a souped up version of my Morris Minor I used to drive when I was 17, called Lola. But it would have a better engine because it only used to go 60 miles an hour.
I was watching a YouTube restaurant mod of one of those the other day, where somebody basically it's a Morris Minor with modern technology.
Yeah, that's what I'd like. And the music I'd be listening to would be a cheesy 80s compilation.
We like that.
Yeah,
we love the 80s.
And we'd be travelling through to the whole of entirety of history. We're going to visit the dinosaurs. Wasn't there
there was an 80s song, wasn't there? Or was it a 90s song, Everybody Walk the Dinosaur?
I walk the dinosaur, open the door, get on the floor,
everybody walk the dinosaur. That's
a good one. That'd be on the radio. Or not the radio, but my cassette player.
Yeah. That's perfect. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you for having me.
And there you go. That was Janine and I. And I'm sure, like me, you really enjoyed just it's always interesting how we try to plan something and it just doesn't go that way. and often there isn't a direct route. But if you are a small to middle business, a big business, whatever, and you liked what Janine had to say, please do check her out. The links will be in the description. And as always, thank you very much for listening. Thank you for the support. It's greatly appreciated. And wherever you are from, whatever you believe, please do take care and be blessed. Thank you.